Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Savannah J. Goins, author of Young Adult Fantasy, and today I'm going to talk to you about editors, whether or not you need one, where to find one, and how expensive it will be. So first of all, you definitely need one. If you have been researching writing for the tedious amount of time, you've probably had it screamed at you multiple times already how important editors are. And that's for good reason. You really do need an editor, even though you may not realize it to start with. Everybody needs one when they first start out. Everyone still needs editing once they've had 20 years of experience. But you're going to need even more editing as you're just starting out, and it's going to make your work so much better, and you're going to learn so much from it that it's definitely worth the expense and the headache. So let's just dive right into that. First of all, how expensive is it going to be? So there's multiple different kinds of editing, and each one has kind of a different definition depending on who you're talking to. So when you do choose an editor, you want to make sure that you very clearly understand exactly what type of edit you're getting for your money. So to just describe roughly what four types of editing are, you have your developmental edit or developmental critique, which is going to be examining your plot. It's going to look for your story structure, any plot holes, examine your character arc, things that could be made stronger, useless bits of dialogue that don't go anywhere, and things like info dumping. It's going to help with all those things. I was a massive info dumper in the beginning of the Gwythinian, and without an editor, it would be a very sad, sad little book. So I'm very glad that I hired a couple editors for the Gwythinian. So the second kind of edit we're going to talk about is a line edit, and that is really examining your words and sentences line by line. So this is after you've already said everything that you need to say, after your characters are strong, your development is good, there's no more plot holes. This is going to be after all of those story elements are done and written the way they need to be. So then you're going to have someone come and look through line by line to see what things on the sentence level need to be fixed. For example, if you start multiple sentences in a row with the same word, or if you have the exact same sentence pattern in multiple sentences in a row, those are things a line editor will fix. So the third kind of editing would be copy editing. And so this is going to be after you are done saying everything, you've done your line edit, you're very confident that everything is as it should be. The copy editor is going to go through and look for the little details. So that's going to be the wrong use of the word there, or a misspelled word, or if you italicize most of your versions of one word and then forget to italicize it in one other place. And also looking for like missing quotation marks, things like that. Those are more copy editing level things. And also kind of in the copy edit and the developmental edit, things like inconsistencies, such as if the character has blue eyes in one scene and has green eyes in a different scene, or is wearing a jacket and then the jacket disappears without it being supposed to. Things like that are also copy editing level things that you'll be having someone look for. The fourth kind is proofreading, and this is going to be basically once your copy edit is done and you are absolutely confident that everything is fixed and as it should be. Of course, there's still going to be things that aren't, but once you have absolutely fixed everything you possibly can, you're then going to hire a proofreader to read through and make sure that everything actually is. And this will also be for consistency, like the whole blue eyes jacket thing. But this is a really, really important step that I actually skipped with the Gwythinian, and I really regret that. So my experience with my developmental editor and line editor was fantastic. I loved working with her. She was awesome. My copy editor, unfortunately, though, missed a lot of things, and I had put myself on such a short deadline to get the book out. I didn't realize I was going to need more time than I really had, and I didn't actually read through the Gwythinian after just going through and approving all of the copy editing things. So that was the last step it had, and I thought that would be enough, and I published it. And it turns out there were a lot of things that still needed to be fixed copy editing level. The story was still where I wanted it, and a lot of the big things had been fixed, but there were a lot of small things that did not get fixed. And a couple of friends were very kind and told me that there were some really embarrassing like copy editing level mistakes, and I went through and had a couple people help me do a proofread, and we actually found 580 something small mistakes, like the jacket disappearing, or the italicized stuff, the car that she drives, the tin can. I didn't italicize tin can in all the places. And that's something a copy editor should pick up. And this also just goes to show that as awesome as editors are, you also need to make sure that you do a last read through and make absolutely sure that everything is as it should be before you send it out for publishing. Don't trust anybody else to do your very last read through. That's something that you need to do. So I ended up getting a proofread and fixing all those things on the Gwythinian, but it was shortly after it was published instead of before it was published, which is really unprofessional and something I will definitely never do again. But a learning experience, and I'm much happier with how it is now. It looks much better now. I actually, long story short, had some formatting stuff fixed as well, and added the illustration above the chapter heading. So I'm much happier with it now, but it was really bad for me not to hire a proofreader to help me catch the things the copy editor missed. So that's definitely something that you don't want to skip out on. So as for how expensive these things are, my developmental edit, I paid 4 cents a word actually for a combo of the developmental edit and the line edit, and that's actually a pretty good deal. A lot of times it's going to be more expensive than that. But I mean, someone else I talked to was going to charge 8 cents a word for a developmental edit, which would totally be worth it. This person was very, very experienced, great references, worked in publishing houses and stuff, wasn't just a new freelancer. She was a great person to work with, but I can't afford 8 cents a word. If you think about it, 8 cents is not a whole lot, 4 cents is not a whole lot, a penny is not a whole lot, but if you multiply it by all the thousands of words that you've written, it really adds up. And it's worth paying for, but it you have to save for it. I mean, I had to save for it, and it's something that is going to be probably the biggest expense in producing your book. So most people will charge by the word. Some people charge by the page or by the hour. I like by the word the best, but that's what I have experience with. So just make sure that you understand exactly what the definition of a page is for someone who edits by the page, because that could be 250 words, that's the standard, but it could also be 500 words. To me, it makes more sense to just charge by the word if you're going to have to define how many words is in a page, but that's just something to make sure that you check into and you really know how much it's going to cost per whatever, so that you can figure out, multiply that by your word count or whatever, your page count or whatever, and figure out how much it's going to cost you so that you can be planning for that. A proofread and copy edit are going to be less expensive. As you get down, they become less expensive because they take less time. Like the developmental edit, like I said, is going to take so much time because there's going to be so many things that need to be fixed. And if you have a good editor, they're going to explain why so that you can learn and not make the same mistakes in the future. But that one will be your most expensive. It'll go down a little bit from there, but something else you want to do is find some different editors, because if I had worked with the same editor for the developmental edit and line edit, by then she had developed a lot of the same blind spots that I already had, and if she had done the copy edit as well, she may have missed a lot of things. Probably still not that many things, but she could have missed some things that a fresh pair of eyes wouldn't miss. So I recommend at least having a fresh pair of eyes for your proofread, if not also your copy edit. So you could end up working with 2 to 4 or more different editors, depending on what you can afford and what you decide you want to hold your book, what standard you want to hold your book to. So as far as where to find one, so now that you know how expensive it's going to be, at least a few hundred, if not a few $1,000s. You want to make sure you don't get scammed. And unfortunately, there are some editors out there that are scammers. A friend of mine lost $2,000 or $3,000 to an editor who scammed him really badly. So you want to make sure that that's not going to happen. And most people are not like this, but you just want to be really careful because you don't know. So my rule for this is I will never use an editor that I don't get a reference directly from someone who I know and trust. So when I was looking for a editor for the Gwythinian, I went to a friend of mine in one of my writing groups who's also in the traditional publishing industry, and she recommended a few people to me. And I looked into them all and ended up deciding on Nadine and had a great experience working with her. She taught me a ton of things, and the Gwythinian would be very, very sad without her help. But I had a reference from someone I knew. Unfortunately, I won't be able to work with her again, even though I definitely would like to, because she is so busy with her own authory things right now. Her fourth book just came out, and she's got a lot of other interesting, exciting things coming. She's not able to do any more freelance editing right now, so I had to look for someone else, and I went to that one editor I mentioned who was really awesome, who I couldn't afford, and I asked her who she would recommend that is a little bit newer and would be looking to do some editing for a little bit less of a giant cost. And she recommended a couple people to me, and I'm real excited about working with the one that I chose. But the point is, I had references from people that I trusted, and not just references on a web page from people that I don't know that may or may not be true. Because I mean, unfortunately, it is easy to make multiple accounts on Fiverr and say comment on your own stuff as being great to work with or whatever. Nothing like a reference from someone that you know and trust. That's just a priceless thing, and so I will never spend thousands of dollars on a service if I have not had someone personally recommended to me by someone that I really trust. So once you've found a couple of editors that you're interested in working with that have been recommended to you by people that you trust, and you are trying to decide which one to work with, and say their prices are all really similar, something that is absolutely imperative to picking an editor is getting a sample edit. An editor should always offer a free sample edit of 1,000 words or 2,000 words or the first few pages or something like that. I have always gotten that from editors that I've worked with, just to make sure that we're going to work well together. Because say you send your sample edit to someone and it comes back and they only found 2 mistakes that were copy editing level when they're supposed to be doing a developmental edit. That could be a sign that they may not be the right people to work with. Now, it could be that your writing is so advanced that you don't need one, but that's probably not the case if you're just starting out. So anyway, though, this is something that an editor should always offer. You should not expect someone to spend thousands of dollars on your service without having a sample of that service to make sure that it is going to be up to the standards that they are looking for. As I was kind of interviewing the couple of editors that I was looking into that were recommended to me by the one editor, one of them asked for a sample edit right away, and I sent it to her, and I liked everything that she picked up on. The other person made it sound like she didn't normally offer an edit, but she didn't normally offer a sample edit, but she would make a special exception and do a sample edit of 500 words just for me, and that sounded really sketchy, so I ended up not working with that person despite some of the other interesting features she had. Like, part of her package was a couple of video calls to just really talk about various things, and she had a few other interesting features, and I really liked them, but she didn't really want to give me a proofread, or she didn't really want to give me a sample edit, and that just really didn't strike me well. So I ended up going with the other editor, and I'm really excited about working with her soon. So as you're looking, so say that you found a couple of editors and they've each sent you a sample edit, because you're not going to go with someone who's not going to send you a sample edit, and you're looking through trying to decide which one's work looks like what you need. What you want to look for is someone who's detailed. You want them to mark up the page. I know that it stinks and you don't want to see everything you did wrong, and you don't want to be shocked by how much you have wrong that you didn't think you did, but you want an editor that's going to just rip everything apart and help you build it back up, because that's exactly what your story needs, especially at the developmental stage. Someone who doesn't point out a lot of things that need fixed is kind of suspicious. I'd be worried that they weren't looking hard enough, or that they didn't have as much experience as they say, because a good editor is going to find a ton of problems, and that's exactly what you're paying them for, because you don't want to see these problems later. I paid my copy editor and got a little bit scammed on that, because I wanted all those things to be fixed before the book went out, and some things weren't fixed, so I ended up having to fix them later. But all my developmental edit level things were fixed, and I'm very proud of that. Even though it was miserable to fix everything, you want someone who's going to find all of those stinking things you're going to have to fix, because what's the point of an editor if they're not going to point out every little thing you did wrong so that you can fix it before your book gets published and the whole world sees everything that you did wrong? Because so something else you're going to look for is for someone who explains things. So if they're both just as detailed, you want to go with the one who is explaining why. So maybe they're going to say info dump well, do you know what an info dump is? Do they explain why you shouldn't have an info dump? If my editor hadn't explained why an info dump was bad, I would have been like, who cares? And I would have just kept going with it, and left it as it was, which would have been horrible. But because she explained why an info dump was bad and how I could more appropriately stick in these tidbits of information in better places, the book is a lot better off because of that. So you want someone who's going to explain things. And the last thing is you want to make sure you have someone who is going to stick to your deadline. Fortunately, both editors that I worked with did stick to deadlines very well. But clues that someone is not going to is if they take a really long time to reply to your email, or if they say, I'll have this copy edit to you, in a week, and it takes them 2 weeks, like anything like that. This is the time that they should be putting their absolute best foot forward to try to get you as a client. And if they're not doing that before you're paying them, to try to get you to pay them, after you've paid them, how do you think they're going to do? So you want to make sure that you have someone who is very attentive to your emails and gets back to you on time. So before you go, I just wanted to mention real quick that I actually offer editing services myself. I'm offering developmental editing right now, for a much more affordable price, because I am a little lower on the experience end. I have experience, but not as much as a lot of people out there, so my prices are going to be a lot lower than a lot of people out there. I am also studying the line editing and copy editing level things, like punctuation and grammar. I'm studying those things. You can see my Chicago Manual of Style right here, and my Proofreading Secrets right here, and my Elements of Style. So I'm studying all those things and working on improving myself in those areas. But I'm not to a level where I've mastered those things yet, so I'm not offering those levels of editing. But when you get a developmental edit from me, all the things I'm learning in there that eventually I will charge for as line edit, copy editing things, all of the things that would fall under those categories, I will still give you in a developmental edit and only charge for the developmental edit. So I will be able to teach you a lot. If you tend to do some certain, everybody has tendencies that they fall into with writing, and I'll be able to point out some of those things for you and help you avoid those in future writing, and that will also make it easier for your line edit and or copy editor to pay attention to the smaller details once I've helped you correct some of the things that are a pattern and tendency for you. So if that's something that you're interested in checking out, it is linked below. And if you found this video useful, I hope that you will give it a nice big thumbs up. If you have any other questions about editing, please leave them in the comments or shoot me an email. I'd be happy to help you with them. And I will be looking for other editing related video topics, so I might even answer your question in a future video. And if you liked this writing tip and would like to see more of my writing tip videos, please hit subscribe. And if you would like to be notified as soon as I post new writing tip videos, hit that bell icon and you will. I'll post new videos on Mondays, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.